Elliot Gleave.
Elliot Gleave.
Welcome to Between Two Beers.
How you doing, man? You all right?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm really good. There are certain guests we get on this pod that we gloat about. And I reckon I've gloated to about 10 people about having you on this week.
I've not stopped talking about it at work all week.
What's the most people you've gloated about?
Probably
20,
you.
20,
yeah,
probably
genuinely you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And can I just say, unanimously, people have been buzzing for it.
Oh, sick.
Like, your audience in New Zealand is, it's huge. Yeah. It's everyone we talked to who couldn't believe example was coming on our podcast.
Oh, I appreciate that, man. I've been coming here for since 2012. Like, I've visited before that, obviously, but I think the first sort of big memory I have of this place was Rhythm and Vines.
Yeah.
And which is obviously now is like your Glastonbury, I guess. You know, it's just
big time.
It's my dream to get back there and play that again. I don't think I've done anything wrong to upset them. I just haven't been back since 2012. But I've probably been to New Zealand and 50 times now. Played 37 gigs here.
Have you really?
I've got a weird spreadsheet because I'm into stats and figures and all that, and I've kept a spreadsheet since my very first gig in 2004 of every gig. I still add to it.
Really?
Now I might do it every few months, whereas I used to do it every week religiously. But it's date, venue, name of event, lineup, capacity, fee. You know, so you can go back 2003, it'll be fee 0, capacity 300, how many people turn up? 12. And it just slowly goes up and up, you know, and then starts going down again. It starts going up again.
Yeah.
And then you go to a new country that you've never played before. So I played Glastonbury, headlined the Glastonbury on the other stage. So I was the Rolling Stones on the main stage, 150,000. I had the other stage behind that, 30, 40,000. And the next day went and played a gig in Luxembourg, 25,000 people. And on the Sunday went and played my first headline show in Madrid in a pub called Moby Dick's Pub. And it was 400 people. So it's good for keeping you humble. Anyway, so carry on.
No, I was going to say, as a fellow Excel spreadsheet enthusiast, is it?
I wondered what you're waiting for. There.
I was really. I wanted to.
I gotta get the Excel spreadsheet. My sponsors.
Excel porn. Is it all on one? Is it one sheet that you can just scroll all the way down? Like, what row are you up to?
I don't know, mate. I've done 1,360 something gigs.
Fuck.
Dunedin this Saturday will be, maybe 1,600. 1,367th gig on Dunedin this weekend.
Well, you and Stephen will get on because he is our stats guy.
Yeah. Okay. I've listened to a few interviews you've done, and I've been really impressed with the
Example,
breakdown. So
one wife, one ex-wife, 2 kids. No, go on.
No, I was wondering if you knew your breakdown because I've heard you talk about where your audience is based around the world. Yeah. And it's Colombia's 2%, and it's Hungary's 4%. But is New Zealand, does New Zealand factor into it?
I've got a high percentage. I don't think my overall percentage is in, I think NZ's probably 1%.
Okay.
But you haven't got a massive population.
No, we haven't. Yeah.
But there's a high proportion of your population are fans in my top 1% fans, I think.
Yeah.
You know, as in they listen to me religiously. It's crazy because I will walk around London and not really get bothered, but maybe that's just because people in London are spoilt. And then I go to a hotspot, you know, in terms of people stopping to ask for a photo or whatever, which is fine because it's just part of the job. But if I go to Glasgow or Manchester, those places for me, they're always the first gigs to sell out when I put a tour on sale. Manchester, 3,000 tickets in 2 minutes. Wow. Glasgow, 2,000 tickets in 5 minutes. London's the biggest venue always, Brixton Academy, 5,000 people. It's always, you sell it out by the time you get to the gig because there's so many other options. There's 100 venues and 100 acts coming every week. But for some reason, I don't know why, but I don't really get bothered in Brisbane where I live. Sydney, don't really get bothered. Go to Perth, it's just people waiting for me at the airport. They know what plane I'm on, or they've been waiting all day. And then Auckland's one of those places as well where I've probably had 25 selfies today.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
And it's a nice buzz. People who complain about being noticed or people hassling you, that's bullshit, man. It's just part of the job. It's nice. Imagine also if you've had a long career. I've had my career's 16, 17 years, still going. 8 albums. 1,360 gigs. No. Imagine if all of a sudden people stopped.
Yeah.
It's always weird if people are filming you have dinner.
Did that happen? That hasn't happened. That hasn't happened tonight, right?
That's not a very Kiwi thing.
Yeah.
You give the side eye, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the Kiwis are a bit like, I don't want to disturb you whilst you're having dinner, you know. Whereas with people just like zooming in, you're like, delete your fucking photo and have a selfie. But I think they're quite respectful here. Yeah. But they're almost like quite surprised to see you, and like whenever I'm here, even though I'm only ever in Brisbane now, they know all these things about you. But I think it was like, oh shit, example. And then you occasionally get people and they're not even like it wasn't this time I was here. It was like last time I was in Auckland. No, I was in Wellington. This guy was just like, oh, bro, yeah. Oh, I'm not even a fan. I just know who you are. I just want to say hey.
I tell you what, it's not a bad Kiwi. It's not a bad Kiwi accent.
Your accent game is fucking fire. Like you've got so many in the locker. They're amazing. The Aussie's good.
If I was in Manchester, I'd be scared to do Manchester. But you know, if I'm in here, I'm like, yeah, I mean, it sounds, yeah, what's happening, mate? Yeah, from Manchester. And then you do Manchester, and it's like, that doesn't sound like us. So to be in the actual place you're doing the accent is always... Yeah.
It's a good... Stephen's actually also, not only is our metrics guy, but he's our accents guy as well.
Always tries
This is the only reason I'm on today.
Are we best friends?
Yeah.
Okay, the other question I had about the Kiwi audience is I've heard you say Scotland's the best place to perform live too.
They're just mental, man. They're just... They go to every gig like it's their last night on earth.
Yeah.
It might be.
But that's just Scotland.
You never know.
Scotland, who knows what you're going to end up with.
But I think I'd heard 62 countries you've performed at around the world. This was
I
maybe
think,
a year ago.
Yeah, I haven't done any new countries for a while.
But where does New Zealand in terms of audience? Do you have?
You're definitely in the top 5 in terms of like your energy for life, you know, your zest for life. And you tend to find like, it's not always the best place in the world. Like, I'm not knocking Scotland. Like, I love going to Scotland, so I get to visit Scotland. But I don't know where it ranks on the places of how nice it is to live. You know, because there's a lot of poverty, and say places like Glasgow as well, and it can be quite rough. I'd say New Zealand's probably. I know you have poverty here as well, but whenever you see the charts of the best places to live in the world, NZ's usually somewhere in the top 10, right?
Yeah.
And there's a couple of Scandinavian countries because they've got their shit
Norway,
together.
Denmark,
Sweden. It's normally Sweden's up there.
Finland, fucking Scandinavia. But it's a combination for me of the best places to live and the worst places to live are always the best audiences. And then the people in between are kind of a bit spoilt, like London or Sydney. You know what I mean? You know, like big cities, trendy cities, cool cities. I think they've got the best food and the best music and the best footy teams and, you know, the best fashion. Generally speaking, you'll do a gig there and it's still good, but it's because I like to get the energy out of my crowds. My crowds are all about raving and jumping up and down. So my gigs are usually pretty successful. Most of them are like, I'm like, yeah, they had a really fucking good time. But I gauge it about how mad they were for an hour and a half. And maybe, I don't know, maybe because NZ's on the other side of the world, people just can't believe people have turned up here.
Yeah.
Or it's just your zest for life and how, you know, you've got a really good way of living, generally speaking. But then maybe for Scotland, they're just fucking mad for it. They're just mad for music, mad for partying, mad for drinking.
Yeah.
You know, like every time I go north of the border, and when I used to travel, I played Scotland maybe 60, 70 times, always the most mental crowds. And they've been drinking from the earliest, and they've been, you know, and they're swearing the most, and like they've got their tops off, and
they're all in
mosh pits and on shoulders, and girls taking their tops off, and it's just like, but they still know what's going on. They can still sing along.
Well, top 5, take top 5.
Top 5 is good. Just looping back to places to live, I was in Brisbane 2 weeks ago. What a city.
It's fucking mega, right?
It's awesome.
I went there maybe 10 years ago. 15 years ago for the first time. I thought it was pretty boring.
Yeah.
I thought it's functional and clean, but there's not much edge to it. The people aren't that exciting, and I now feel it's one of the fucking coolest cities in the world.
Fallons, I went there for the first time the other night. It was amazing.
I take my kids every few weeks.
Yeah, nice.
Like Brewing Co. on the water, on the river's edge. Best pizzas, best steaks, best burgers. And they got like a big play area for the kids, live music.
Sat right next to the play area.
Yeah.
Funnily enough. There you go.
Too big for the slide?
Yeah, I was. There was a lot of people bigger than me late at night that were trying to get down there, though, as well.
But yeah, it's I obviously ended up in Brisbane because the mother of my kids, Erin, you know, we always dreamed of raising our kids in Australia. She'd sacrificed everything career-wise, moved to London for me 10 years ago. Didn't expect to have kids, had kids. 2 beautiful boys. And then things were going well in London for us, but we were just like, you know, we were living on the River Thames in this lovely apartment next to a park, and we had a swimming pool downstairs and had all these stupid cars. You know, I went through a crazy supercar phase, and
we all do. Yeah,
we all do. Yeah, I don't know why I'm saying that. You know what it's like, Dad.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I brought the Lambo up tonight, actually. I left the Porsche at home.
But we were just like, this isn't a place to raise kids. So came back to Oz, and it was actually the best decision ever, because I think looking at the kids every day, you know, despite what's happened, you know, going through a separation and getting divorced, it's like Erin and I are now better friends than ever. Probably better friends than we were in our last year of living in London. Because, you know, just London is an intense place to live. There's a lot of, there's a real sense of like keeping up with appearances, you know, events and launches and premieres and everything that comes with that, the clothes and the hair and the, not speaking personally, but nails and the tans and the, you know, and then the Ubers and the babysitters and so on. It was just fucking so much. It was like our life was a bit of a circus. Thought we'd move to Brisbane and chill out a bit, and it was a better place for kids. Turns out it was a better place for kids. And then we've ended up realizing we're not meant to be together. And it's the coolest thing ever, you know? Like, we're happier than ever. The kids are happier, certainly happier than when we were together. And she now, you know, she lives around the corner, or, you know, 5-minute drive, but around the corner. There's the schools, the kids' schools in the middle of where we live. And, yeah, I just feel like Brisbane is our life. The kids are our life, and Brisbane's our life. And Brisbane will always be my life, you know. The kids need to be there, and it's the best place to raise them, education-wise and health and weather. And they're all, my mum and dad are on the Gold Coast. Erin's mum and dad and all her brothers are all around Brisbane nearby. So it's just like, I'm kind of, you know, obviously sad, got divorced, but glad I left London. It was not a place. I would have spiraled out of control there. I just don't think it was a healthy place, a healthy environment for me. And I just think that the kids are better off for it now as well. I didn't expect to get divorced, but if you're gonna get divorced, guys, do it in Brisbane. So I didn't even mean to get onto that.
No, it's good.
Just entered my mind.
I was going to say, I've only met you for 5 minutes, but you seem like you've got a really good energy. You seem like you're in a really good place. I'm not sure if you've always been like this, but some people come into the room and they've got that aura about them.
I've always had a lot of energy, and I'm always generally a pretty positive person. I just don't know if my energy was always authentic. You know, I'm just very, very happy right now. I'm very happy, very healthy, very focused. Like, got a new girlfriend. She's amazing. My kids love her. Erin and her get on like a house on fire. Not because they have to. They just get on. Like, if I was out of town and one of them, you know, was lonely and one of them had the kids and I was out, they would hang together. They do hang together without me there, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And not just for the sake of the kids. They just like hanging out. So that's cool. And then I just think since I've started painting recently, that's really kind of switched things up. Like, just obviously it's being artistic and creative, but it's just so fucking relaxing. And then by the end of the day, you go to bed and you're like, I've achieved something today.
What do you paint?
Like oil on canvas and acrylics. I just posted them on my Instagram.
Yeah,
the other
I've
day.
seen them.
I've had like 300-400 inquiries to buy them already.
I bet they look cool.
I mean, a lot of people go, oh, because you've got 500,000 followers, you're painting shit, but I don't really care. Yeah. They want to buy them. I'm going to give like a portion of everything I sell to charity, to Teenage Cancer Trust. So just it's a lovely hobby, because I think one of the toughest things, you probably, I've seen who you've had on your show, and I'm sure the people you've met in their line of work, you meet a lot of athletes and they get to say 30 and then they don't know what to do. So if they don't go into management or presenting, what is there for them to do? And then I think, even though a lot of musicians, there's probably not an age limit on musicians nowadays. I mean, there's very few people who get to an Elton John level, but I've had 15 years, which is a fucking lifetime. You know, most people are maybe lucky to have 2-3 years now in music, but you often meet actors, musicians, athletes. It's like, what the fuck do you do in your downtime? Especially when you've got to a point where you don't necessarily have to go to work every day. And for me, that was a real struggle for so long. It was just like, okay, I've got the next album recorded, dropped the kids off at school, I've been to the gym, I've had a coffee.
I'm going to put this energy.
You know, really like frustrating. And you can see why so many people end up in rehab, you know, like ADHD, it could be drugs, it could be alcohol, it could be also, you know, gambling. Like, you know, I've never been into gambling, but I've been into everything else. But, you know, it's just like genuinely finding painting has really chilled me out.
Yeah.
I do yoga in front of the TV most nights. I've been doing that for a few years. Like not following a yoga instructor or an audio book or an app. Like I've done yoga plenty of times, so I'll sit and watch a film and I'll unwind by doing yoga. Like cool, 5 nights a week.
Yeah,
it's amazing what a different Elliot we're talking to now than we would have spoken to sort of 15 years ago.
I mean, I could talk from the point of view of an Elliot.
We'll get there. We're
going to get to that.
The full spectrum.
Look, the way we do
Elliot
things.
wouldn't have been drinking this one.
He wouldn't have been drinking that.
No, not the rig. He wouldn't be on the Rig Watcher. No way.
Anyway, look, the way we do things here, we tell the audience how we know the guest. So, Shay, how do you know Example?
Big fan. Big fan.
Oh,
Waihi Beach Tavern 2012. I was at that gig. It was fucking awesome.
That was a very sick gig.
Yeah,
I still remember that.
It was amazing, and like I had that. To what you were talking about, I had that Kiwi thing of like, what's he doing here?
Yeah.
It was close to where I was staying at the time. It was an epic night, but also like you've been a constant. I like to fancy myself as the team DJ for various football teams that I'm involved in and dressing rooms, and like to set the tone based on the songs that we play. So. Like the Canine remix of Drops comes,
sick.
Yeah, is one of the ones when we were trying to amp things up.
I always feel like if I was going to go into battle, I'd want that song before.
So that's what gets played pre-match. It's on that pre-match playlist, and then with Calvin Harris will be coming back as like a celebratory song.
Yeah.
But I'm very happy to report when All Night dropped.
Okay.
I heard it on Spotify for the first time. I remember exactly where I was. I was driving to North Harbour Stadium to a match, and I was like, "Who the fuck is this?" Looked, I was like, "Fuck!"
I know this guy.
It's Example.
I sound quite different though because I'm not singing.
Well, that's what.
And I'm almost talking.
That's what caught me, and I loved the song before I saw the video. So there you go. A lot of people just wanted it for the video.
Yeah, I think.
But I was one of the OGs that jumped on early doors.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, that video obviously was Erin and I in London dancing around our apartment, probably trying to raise money to get flights back to Australia. But yeah, that video was my first ever viral video.
Yeah.
My first and only viral video.
Yeah.
Obviously helped that she was in her underwear. Her idea. But yeah, fond memories, man.
Yeah, so you've been a constant. You've been a constant for a long, long time. So I'm like, this is a fan moment for me, like a big time fan moment. So I'm having a great time so far. But Stevie, your connection?
Yeah, I'm a little bit nervous to say how I know Elliot.
Okay.
I want to tell the truth, but it's got a happy ending. All right. So once your publicist reached out, right, and says, Elliot's in town, Example's in town, do you want him on the show? And I've taken a screenshot of the email and I've sent it to our group, producer Adam and Shay. And I said, what do we think, lads? Within a few seconds, Shay's come back. What do you mean? What do we think?
Yeah.
He's like my favorite artist. Are you fucking kidding me? And Adam's like, he's like one of the biggest artists of the last 20 years. Are you, what do you mean? And so I've gone to Spotify and I've typed in Example. And I've listened to your song, and I've listened to all of them.
Where's this going?
And I've listened to like 20 of the songs. I'm like, I'm a fucking Example fan. I love these songs. I just didn't put the songs to the artist.
Okay.
So I
appreciate the honesty.
I am a fan, but I didn't know the song.
I thought this was going to be like, I fucked your sister 10 years ago. So that was what his face looked like, didn't it?
What it made me realise is that Spotify has warped my sense of music. I saw these playlists come and I like these songs, but I don't always associate who they're from. But then anyway, I went back and listened and I was like, Kickstarts 2010. It took me back to Queenstown. I was in my party phase there.
Yeah.
3-4 times a night would be out. I was with my girlfriend who became my wife. That was the song that charged us up. We'd go out every time we'd go out. It's, you know those songs that take you back to a certain place in time?
Do you know what? I did an interview about 9 months ago back in the UK on quite a big radio station. And the presenter, he's a broadcasting legend, he's been around like 30 years. And he goes, I got this theory that nearly everyone has got their example song for a certain moment. And I was like, okay. Yeah. And he goes, this guy's about 55. And he was like, honestly, he goes, I speak to people, he goes, I lost my virginity, remember that example song. Took my first pill, example song. Proposed to my missus, example song. First dance at wedding, example song. First time at a festival with my mates, example song. Not necessarily that you were the soundtrack, but everyone can remember like a time where they were like, And then they had all these people call in, and there was this girl, she was like, yeah, I went to Ultra Festival in Miami, the height of EDM, and We'll Be Coming Back that's all we played. And I remember when dubstep started, his song Shot Yourself in the Foot Again with Scream, and that's all I played at university, like non-stop for 6 months. Another girl called in, was like, oh yeah, I lost my virginity listening to Kickstarts, and it was obviously,
a hard one
obviously
to
they'd lined up all these people to call in and say these nice things, but
I definitely associate with that. I've got such strong memories of that song.
I'm quite proud of making a load of sort of timeless music.
Yeah,
because a lot of my peer group, maybe not so much in like drum and bass and house, and I've been lucky enough to work with some amazing producers. Like most of Calvin's songs are really timeless. Sub Focus, Jason Status, all from my era, all really timeless classics. But there's a lot of people, rappers as well, UK rappers, who just sort of came out, had some hits, and then disappeared. So it's kind of, I do feel, I wouldn't say lucky, but I feel fortunate to be here. I don't think there's much luck involved, because I've worked my fucking ass off non-stop, still do. Yeah. Not just being here, this is easy, like interviews and chatting, but just constantly grafting to come up with new songs and new ideas, and then traveling around the world when you've got 2 little kids to fulfill contracts to perform. But I just think it is, I've definitely been fortunate, because there's been times there's key people at radio or television or at festivals who've gone, I want example, when nobody else did. So
last 48 hours, last 72 hours, back catalogue playing non-stop. But I've also been researching, listening to a lot of interviews you've done, and I have, what's the word? I've related to you in a lot of your musical influences.
Okay.
And I'm going to read the ones that I've written down. So I read your go-to karaoke song is Regulate.
Yeah,
Warren G.
G.
Regulate.
Yeah, I'm
How
glad.
much research you've been doing, mate? This is great research.
Don't worry about us.
I also do Gangsters. I don't know, you do Gangsters Paradise?
Gangsters Paradise,
Gangsters Paradise. Okay, so those are my 2 karaoke songs.
True story. He's got a great Gangsters Paradise from our Christmas party last year. It was very, very
12
good.
pubs of Christmas.
Because Nate Dogg me and Nate Dogg have got a natural. We share a natural. On a mission trying to find DJ Warren G. Yeah. I'm down there.
You are down there.
When my career first started, I used to go into radio stations, black radio stations, and the presenter would just be like, "Who's that? Oh, I thought you're a black guy." Because my voice had such a bass to it. Anyway, carry on.
I continue. I've read that you know every word to Wu-Tang Clan's Triumph. Yeah. Which I don't know every word, but I know a lot of those words.
Atomically, Socrates' philosophies and hypotheses can't define how I be dropping these mockeries. Lyrically perform on robbery, flee with the lottery, possibly they try to me. Wow, there you go.
That'll start Shogun.
Explosion when my bed sits tremendous. Ultraviolet, shamblind, forensics. Right, cool.
So we got
That'll start Shogun.
My man knows too. Okay, so we got Triumph.
Sleep on me.
And then the last one was huge Michael Jackson fan.
Yeah,
but found
can't talk about it anymore.
But found it difficult to enjoy his music after finding Neverland. Because my kids, I got 3 kids, and they've gone through a Michael Jackson phase. They're big Michael Jackson.
Not staying with him
musically.
He cuddled them shortly before he died.
Allegedly.
Let me make this very clear. But it's like the music.
Fuck's sake.
Oh, good. I'm glad, because I feel responsible for putting this in your head.
Yeah, he did. Me and Che had a big chat about it. He's like, I don't think you should be playing your kids Michael Jackson. I'm like, what do you mean?
Steve was like, fuck off,
Michael
Che.
Jackson. And then we took it to our friend group, and it was kind of split. Like, nah, I don't think you can separate the man from the music. And I'd read that you sort of struggled with that as well.
Yeah, I love Michael Jackson music, man. Love Michael Jackson music. Like, I used to have the Moonwalker game on Sega Mega Drive.
Wow,
to play that.
That's a throwback.
I used to watch, like, my mum taped for me the Bad premiere on Top of the Pops, which was like 15, 20 minutes, that short film. Yeah. Like, with all the build up, like the short film before, as well as the final dance and the action. I used to watch that on repeat as a kid. I used to enter talent competitions doing Michael Jackson impersonations. Right, so, and then I kind of, as I got older and you get more into the groove and sex, and then you discover the early stuff, and even though he's not an overtly sexual person, looks and in interviews and stuff, that Off the Wall album's a very sexy album. Like, PYT. I want to love you. And you're there with the girl just like, we say, you can't listen to the shit.
Yeah, it's tricky, but the music is so good. I'm like, I've kind of just accepted it, but Shay keeps giving me side eye whenever I bring it up.
Oh, look, there's got to be a point at some stage where you tell the kids. You tell Bowie, and you tell Ted, and you tell Billy, and you let them find out for themselves.
Have you seen the new Chris Rock where he's talking about Michael Jackson and R. Kelly?
Not yet.
The new Chris Rock on Netflix. He's just like, he's talking about R. Kelly and Chris Rock, basically. Sorry, R. Kelly and Michael Jackson. He's like, it's the same shit. It's the same, they both did the same fucked up shit. But he's like, it's just that Michael Jackson's got better music.
I was going to ask that. What happens when an R. Kelly song comes on? Are we skipping it or are we letting it?
Well, I believe I can fly. Bump and grind.
Yeah.
Believe I can fly.
Believe I can fly, and then
remix to
ignition.
You got to let that play.
Unbelievable.
You've got to let that play. I think
that's a fucking sick tune.
Yeah.
Bottom fresh out the kitchen, mama rolling. Nobody got everybody to listen. Yeah, Michael Jackson's got what 20 amazing songs. R. Kelly's got 4 or 5.
Yeah.
But you still can't play either of them.
No, it's a tricky one. Anyway, look, I kind of wanted to start talking about the music about current day Elliot. And I know you've just released a single, you're here to do a show in Dunners, but I heard you say about a year ago that the most important thing with creating music now is to create songs that go off when performed live. But I also heard you say you want a #1 hit to remember what it feels like. So I just kind of wondered how your approach to creating music is different now than it was maybe in sort of 2012 or 10 years ago.
I think, so when I had all these sort of breakthrough hits, and obviously a hit back then was charts, and the charts were iTunes. iTunes, it wasn't even CDs, it was iTunes downloads, 2009, 10, 11. I'd only ever known hip-hop, and only ever made hip-hop with one producer, and it had a charm to it. It was quite laddie and cheeky, but I had storytelling, but I wasn't really singing. And a lot of my punchlines were, one-hit punchlines, and you've just heard it all before. And I was like, I didn't really know what I was doing, and I hadn't really worked with any proper producers. And then I started working with different producers, different songwriters. So I started learning songwriting, song structures, melodies, refining lyrics, working with better producers, and then just working out the importance of a big riff, like all my big songs are just like, as soon as it starts, you know what it is straight away before my voice has come in, just from the big riff. So then I kind of effortlessly, without even knowing what I was doing, made songs and started climbing the charts. Around the same time I was climbing the charts in the UK, I was doing the same in Oz and Ireland and NZ. They were like the 4 main countries, which would kind of make sense based on the culture. And my first breakthrough song was Watch a Sun Come Up. And then I had, that was like 18 in the charts, and Won't Go Quietly. Won't Go Quietly was like number 7. And then Kickstarts was number 3. And I wasn't trying to write hits, I was trying to make bangers. I was trying to make songs that people you would want to sing along to. They'd be timeless. So there's no lyrics that were too specific about that era or any pop culture references about that era. I was trying to make songs that would just sound great in 10, 20, 30, 40 years, that would remind you of a holiday or first kiss, etc., etc. And that's kind of what I stuck to. And at the same time, radio stations around the world were backing them so much that they became hits, and the marketing teams at the record label, at Ministry of Sound, were getting these songs to the right ears. So I was told after Kickstarts, it's very difficult to write another Kickstarts. Most people don't even write Kickstarts in their career, let alone another one. So I basically was just like, well, I've got a formula here. I sing, rap a little bit in the middle once or twice, sing about my real life, which at the time was breakups or late nights or drugs or alcohol or lying to my girlfriend or something like that. So I just wrote about real life, so it came naturally. I'd listened to a lot of classic grunge, mainly Nirvana, for the sort of melancholic, darker elements of the melodies, It's like, it's uplifting, but it's essentially pretty depressing what he's saying. And a lot of my early records, what I was saying was pretty depressing, but the music was uplifting. And I kind of nicked that from Nirvana. Everyone borrows the shit. And then I wrote Chains the Way You Kissed Me, and then I wrote Stay Awake, both #1s in the UK. They were, #1, then I think Oz, NZ, top 5. And then the song with Calvin Harris, then Say Nothing was #2 as well. Anyway, so this was this whole sort of chart era. And those songs are all in my set now. But I kind of got to a phase where I was disenfranchised by the music industry, that pressure of delivering more hits. And then all of a sudden I was in the studio getting calls and emails. How's it sounding? Does it sound like a hit? I was like, I never tried to write hits. I just tried to make timeless bangers that mean something to people. So I went for a period of maybe 5 years of really being a bit lost. And then where I'm at now, I just make music for me that I will enjoy performing. And I guess that I feel like I'm so experienced and I've got such a back catalogue that if you put me on stage anywhere in the world, chances are I'm there. Bit for my old hits, bit for my new hit. Well, not hits, but you know, I love his new drum and bass stuff that he's done, but I also want to hear the hits. Whatever you book me for, whatever you pay for the ticket for, I'm going to give you both, and it's going to be loads of energy. And what I was saying last year is like, I'm not trying to make hits now, but it would be nice if one of them accidentally was a hit. Yeah. So I could remember what that feels like, because it's a nice feeling. Like I've had, you know, a number one album, 2 number one singles in the UK. Like that's all my top 10 singles there. 6, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 2 in the UK. And then, you know, countless other hits all around the world. I had a number one hit in America that I wrote for the boy band The Wanted. So I've had a number one in America as a songwriter. But yeah, I can't lie. It felt nice to have a hit. I'm not doing it to be a hits now. Like, I think if I was going to have a hit now, Radio 1 or Capital FM or Nova in Sydney or whoever, you know, would have to get on board with the song and play it so much. And then I'd have to have a performance on the Jonathan Ross show, you know, in the UK, a massive Graham Norton. I've been on Graham Norton in the past, and that always propelled my songs up in the charts. Stuff like that becomes a big hit on TikTok, nothing to do with me. You know, some TikToker uses my song in an aerobics video, a yoga video, a fucking cooking video.
That's wild, eh?
Yeah.
That sort of
It's
shit.
the Wild West, that stuff.
And that is the sort of thing that could give me a hit again. So I'm not looking for a hit. I don't think I said I was looking for one. I was saying I'd love to have one, but I'm not trying.
But you've released Gold like a week ago.
Yeah.
What's the process now? Like, you put that out there. Do you care what the reception is? Do you tune that out totally? Is it like delayed gratification where a few weeks down the track people say that's a fucking
Well, I
banger?
read the comments on Instagram. I promote it on Twitter, but I don't really read the responses on Twitter because I've had a lot of toxic things in there. Yeah. You know, 1 minute, you know, I'm going back 3 years ago. 1 minute I'm defending black people and Black Lives Matter, and the next minute I'm arguing with black people because of a comment I've made about Wiley making an anti-Semitic comment about Jews. So
that's a what? Because you got 1.6 million followers on Twitter.
Yeah,
That's
so you just realize, you know, you're going on there. You know, I went to school with a lot of black people. I make black music. You know, most of my best friends, my closest friends are black. It's like, it's not the reason to then go out and support Black Lives Matter. It's just something I did naturally. And you get all these people going, amazing, great, cool. And then every now and again, you're going to get some random racist, you know, dickheads commenting on Twitter. And they're so easy for them to access you on Twitter. You know, it's quite difficult to go through and just like, I'm going to block 100 people. But then like 6 months later, Wiley comes out and makes these comments about hating Jewish people. I can't remember what he said, but it's something anti-Semitic. And then I'm trying to defend Jewish people against some black people who'd got the wrong end of stick about something I said about grime music. Anyway, it's all, you know what I mean? Even talking about it now just makes you go.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
So I don't really go on Twitter. But yeah, I release a new song and I do care what people think. And then I look at my artists for Spotify for Artists app and my Apple Music app, and I can see how many people are listening and what they're listening to and what they're saying. So I do care, but I probably, if I ever have a surprise hit, it's going to be a song that I've forgotten about, and one day I'll wake up and my manager calls me and goes, that song's been used in a new Toyota commercial. You're doing in America. Or this TikToker's done a dance to your song from 6 months ago. Remember that song we forgot about? Yeah. Oh, that's huge. It's had 15 million views overnight, and now it's blowing up in Korea. Now it's blowing up in... That's probably going to happen. I'm not spending money promoting these songs. I'm not going, here's a 10 grand Facebook ad spend. Or here's a 5 grand YouTube ad spend. It's like, I'd rather spend that money on acrylic paint. Yeah. You know?
we're here to promote it. Go listen to it. It's a fucking banger.
It is a good song.
Thank you. I'm doing an acoustic version on George FM.
Are you really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, well, when this goes out, I would have already done it. But
okay, we'll link to it in our show notes. I was wanting to dive into that, the sort of the blow up stages. Kickstarts comes out in the second album, and the third goes platinum. All these hits. The fame, right? Because you had a bit of a late start. It wasn't until 26, 27 that you sort of...
Yeah, most people get into fame now before 20.
Yeah.
Because of TikTok, or because you can upload straight to Spotify or SoundCloud. You know, there's a lot of, in America, SoundCloud rappers. They even call them SoundCloud rappers.
You'd experienced real life. You know what real life was, and then you got famous, right? Like, it's kind of unique.
I'd had loads of shit jobs.
Yeah.
I'd
been to uni. I'd had failed relationships. I'd tried my first pill. I'd done my first line. I'd been sacked. I'd had my heart broken. I'd graduated. I'd done all of this, but not in the public eye. Whereas most people now do those sort of things. Their first heartbreak, or the first time they're pictured coming out of a club high as a kite, they're doing that, with cameras on them. Yeah. Even in when I was doing this at 27, 28, people had cameras on their phones, but no one would, you wouldn't be at a football match and then someone would go, you just didn't see that shit. Like, you can now, it's crazy how easy it is to just grab your phone and flick the camera up and hit record.
Yeah.
Or just hold your finger on the volume bar. Like, I'm talking about a Sony Ericsson BlackBerry phone, which took a pixelated picture. And I'm, when I became famous, I never had to deal with that. I became famous and MySpace had only just disappeared maybe a year ago. So it was like MySpace and Facebook. Twitter wasn't even a thing until maybe a year later. Instagram wasn't a thing. Didn't have TikTok. Didn't have, SoundCloud wasn't as prominent as it was in terms of, uploading music straight to the internet. Like, I'm going to sing in my bedroom, off key, put auto-tune on. I'm going to hit the AI button to give it some drums and percussion and sound effects. AI button. Sick. Yep. Cool. Throw in some sounds. Oh, I want to sound like Juice WRLD. Cool. Put the Juice WRLD AI button. Song finished. 1 minute 13 second song, but it's 1 minute 13. Straight on SoundCloud. Give yourself a cool name. Take a selfie of yourself. Invert the colors. Okay, now my skin's purple. My hair's green. Like, pixelate it. Go on an AI app. Create my own logo. What am I going to be called? All right, my name's James. All right, I'm going to be called. My name's James Smith. I'm going to be called J.S. J.S. Right, create logo. AI. Bang. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they wake up next day, 20 million streams, and then they've got to go and perform at a fucking festival. That's like their third gig. I know most people know that. They're doing the third or fourth gig to 5,000 people. In the UK, the rappers are blowing up, that. And like, I'm a big Central C fan. I'm not knocking Central C here. There's a lot of shit rappers all over the world. Rappers, singers, pop stars who've blown up through, fair play to them, great name, great Instagram marketing, great use of auto-tune on the track, whatever, and I'm not knocking that, but I didn't play in front of maybe 1,000 people until my 300th gig, if I refer back to my spreadsheet. These guys now, like Central C was like, before he'd even headlined a show, say in London, to 5,000 people, it was on a fucking festival to 50,000. Yeah. And it might have been his 5th or 6th show. And you can see as these people are doing their shows, they're kind of like feeling their way out. They're feeling their way around the stage, and they're learning crowd control, and they're learning how to deal with someone throwing a drink, and they're learning how to forget the lyric, or if the record skips, or there's a stage invasion. All these things that you pick up over, say, 500 gigs or 1,000 gigs, they've got to learn in 4 or 5 gigs.
Does anyone come to you for advice on that sort of stuff? Do they like the
occasionally, yeah, young artists do come up, or they're kind of, it's more like a sixth sense where they're just sort of, they watch and, I play festivals back in the UK, and sometimes there's an act who's on just before me or whatever, and they've had way more streams than me, but they're brand new. And they sit and watch my whole show, and they'll come up afterwards, and they'll be like, bro, like, what I just saw there, like, fuck, man, I learned a lot, like, you're sick, man, you're sick guy, like, because there's performing and there's performing. I've never claimed to be the best rapper or the best singer, but I put on a fucking good show, you know what I mean? Like, you've got to know what you're good at if you want to have a long career. And I know that I put on a fucking good show, and I've got some timeless bangers, I'm not going to just be around for a minute.
Looking back now, like we saw, Current Elliot is so different to this one during this phase, sort of partying and drugs and women and all sort of stuff. Do you remember, was there a specific moment, was it like your first hit that went to #1, or your second album or third album, when you realised you'd made it and the ego got as inflated as it ever was? Was it during that sort of 2012 period where... Yeah,
I reckon somewhere between 2010 to 2012. Can't really remember what it was. I mean, I don't really remember a lot of that. I was like, even though I'd party pretty hard, I'd also go to the gym still. And I think you can do it when you're that age. You can't really do that at 40. I'm 40 now. You can't really do that. But, I would stay up all night and then go for a 4-mile run in my mind, I was sweating it out.
Yeah.
And then I'd go sit in a sauna, and then I'd sleep for 14 hours, and then get up, eat really healthily, go to the gym, then go and shoot a music video, then go and do some interviews, and go and do a gig, and then stay up all night again and be a fucking idiot. So that whole era kind of just blurred into one. Like, you bump into people, guys, girls, managers, artists, and then they're like, oh yeah, I remember you from so, and then they say it, and my brain goes, oh yeah, but I don't know. like in 2013, I did 128 gigs and 136 flights.
So
every 3 days you're on a plane or on a stage in front of thousands of people. Every 3 days for a whole year.
But are you love it? Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I loved it.
Like, that's what you dreamed to.
I was dreaming to do it, and like, you know, my old tour manager Chris Grifter, he looked after like the Stone Roses back in the day, and then he looked after Craig David when he first blew up, and he looked after Pendulum. He just toured the world constantly with like the biggest bands from, you know, like the late 80s, early 90s. He'd always been on the road. And he toured with me for like 6-7 years when I did arenas back in the UK. I did like 20 arena shows in 1 year in the UK and headlined 7 or 8 festivals to like 30,000 people. And he used to say, he was like, you're made of different stuff. And I'll be like, what? You're like, yeah, you're cut from a different cloth to most other people. As in, he felt that I could handle it better than most. He was like, some people can't handle it. They just can't get out of bed. They can't get out on stage. They can't deliver the performance. He was like, you're rare in that you can stay up all night and then get on stage the next day and still put on a fucking great performance. You're lucky you've got a rich, deep, powerful voice that isn't prone to fading or having a loss of voice. You know, I've had to cancel the gigs. I've got a sore throat. But it was like, there will come a point where, you know, you'll reach a tipping point and then you'll just have to fucking stop because you'll be dead. But he was basically saying, compared to all the people he'd seen me tour with, he was like, you're made of different stuff. So he was complimenting me, but he was also just saying, you're not going to be able to do this forever.
It's mad. I read, I think in 2012, 190,000 tickets in 1 year, performed 27 countries in Europe, headlined 10 of them. That might have been over a longer period. But just like an absolute world. Like, it's something to look back on. You must be so proud of that.
Do you know my only regrets are that I didn't film a lot of it? And which is mad because we're just talking about how everything's caught on camera and film nowadays. Like, everything I do now, we get highlights. Or I get photos of every gig, I get highlights, and I get an edit done, like, usually for Insta Reels. But if you were to make a documentary of my life from the last 2 years, you'd have footage. So much footage of every gig. You'd make a fucking amazing doc. If you were to try and go back to 2003 onwards, there's hardly anything. And that's one of my only regrets. And there's a lot of artists who, even back in the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, you know, someone knew one day someone would want to make a documentary. You know, you watch the Kanye West documentary. So it was very fortunate, you know, that his best mate at the time was filming with a camcorder all those early meetings, all these studio sessions, all the early gigs. And then you watch the Juice WRLD documentary, and, you know, it's really tragic what happened with him, but they were filming pretty much everything on stage and off stage. Yeah, there's some really weird stuff in that documentary where you see him taking all these prescription drugs in a hotel room, and his mates are just filming it, and he's just doing it in front of them. And it's quite shocking to see that someone as big as he was, you know, because you often have footage of people looking drunk or high, but you never actually have footage of them doing the drug. And that Juice WRLD documentary, I was like, fuck, I've never seen anything like that. And actually, I was like, I'm quite sad that there's a lot of moments like when I headlined Southwest 4, Clapham Common, London, 30,000 people, don't have any footage of that.
Do you think if you crowdsourced, there would be footage of it? Do you think there's people in because there was camera phones then? That there would be people
Good shout.
Put together a little...
I think you could, but I'm just talking about professionally filming. You know, where we've got the lasers and the flames and the visuals and the fireworks. You know, they're just moments that I'd like to rewatch one day with my kids. I don't want to watch them every week, and I'm not even talking about making a documentary. I'm just like, quite mad you've done that. Like, I played Earl's Court, and I've got footage of that. And Earl's Court is knocked down now, but that was like London's biggest indoor arena. It was 24,000. Like the O2 Arena is 19,000. Earls Court's 24. I sold that out in 2014. And then the Arctic Monkeys played 2 weeks after me, and then they knocked it down. So I was the second to last band to ever play there. Yeah. I'd been see Oasis there when I was a kid, and Chemical Brothers. Yeah. But yeah, it's just mad. Like everything's filmed. I'm certainly glad there's no footage of all the fucked up things I did.
Yeah. they live on in your brain.
Yeah.
When you
unfortunately
when you reflect on such a hectic schedule like we were talking about, during you talk about your voice holding out and things like that, but are there times where you're waking up in the morning and you're just going, I can't fucking do this anymore?
Yeah.
And what did you just power through though?
Just power through, man. I think because I've never been really good at sports. Like I was good at running in a straight line, and I was good at swimming in a straight line. Like I wasn't very good at team sports, but I was really into anything to do with endurance. Like, I ran a half marathon when I was 25 for a laugh. And I did it in an hour and 17. With sort of...
I was 17.
For a laugh.
17. Yeah.
For a laugh.
Yeah. For a laugh.
Yeah.
So I've always had the engine and the lungs and the determination. And I got back and I couldn't walk. And then I passed out, I think, for 4 or 5 hours. I ate a burger and passed out 4 hours. Woke up, needed help to walk. I just put everything into it. And my dad, both my mum and dad are amazing in terms of their endurance for life, their energy for life. They've both been through a lot. As you find out, most people chat to their parents like, fuck, what the fuck? My parents have been through shit. But my dad was always a marathon runner. He'd done 10 marathons. My dad's best time was 2:36, a full marathon.
Wow.
Fuck.
So
2:36?
Yeah. So I would always look up to my mum, I guess, and now I've had kids as well. And then maybe you look back retrospectively, my mum she had a lot of endurance in terms of pretty much raising me and my sister by herself, because my dad was always away working. And my dad had this endurance for work and success and, I guess, running on the side, which kept him sane. So it was always ingrained into me that you just fucking get on with shit. And that's why I think whatever state I was in, and I wouldn't always wake up hungover after every gig, but sometimes you were just jet lagged.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking of the physical toll of travel.
Sometimes my legs wouldn't work, and I'd just sit there and have to stretch for an hour, or I'd have to jump in a bucket of ice. We'd have to have an emergency physio brought in from, I'd be in Frankfurt playing a festival, and I was on 6 p.m. before Megadeth and, a rock festival, but it'd be Skunk Anansi and Megadeth and Rammstein at Rock am Ring. And I'd be stuck in another German city, and we'd have an emergency physio come in to work on my legs because I was pretty much walking crippled, because I'd been jumping around. I'd done 5 40-minute shows in 3 days. Yeah. You just show at 4 p.m., show at 9 p.m.
And your high energy shows, right?
Yeah.
Your shows are full on.
Yeah. So yeah, I couldn't do that anymore. Last summer, I did 33 shows in the UK. So obviously you got your NZ summer, UK summer. Occasionally I delve into Europe. I might do Spain, Portugal, Austria, Hungary, where I've always had a bit of a big following. But mostly it's UK. I was in NZ at the moment. And last summer we agreed to 5 gigs in 3 days. 2 90-minute shows and 3-hour shows. And on the Monday morning, my girlfriend's got a video of me. We're walking to the pub to just go and get a lunch. And I'm literally walking on my heels. Yeah. My calves, my knees, my hips, just fucked.
Yeah. People don't see that.
That's the unseen
side. That's 2 90 minutes, so 3 hours plus another 3 1-hour shows. So 6 hours, and my shows are pretty much on a massive, just that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Rapping,
yeah.
So it's basically skipping.
A lot of calf work.
Skipping for 6 hours over a weekend.
Yeah.
A bit of alcohol, and then eating relatively well, and I do stay hydrated, and I do stretch before everything, and I stretch afterwards. But it's basically you can probably do that at 27, but you can't do that at 40.
No.
And not be. And I was properly fucked. Having to get my physio now in the UK. This guy called James Davis. who's basically got me into ice baths and saunas. I've got an ice bath and sauna at home now, which I use 3-4 times a week, and that's pretty much, I feel like I'm aging backwards as a result. Changes your blood pressure, and your skin starts looking different, and your stress levels go down, and then you sleep better, and it's just, you can hold your breath for longer. You feel like you can train harder. You can train harder, quicker, sooner after because it helps you with the recovery. But he was basically like, this guy looks after a load of Premier League footballers. He still sees David Beckham every other week, because Beckham's obviously still in amazing shape. Massage, needles, cracks your back, like osteopath. And this guy was basically just like, dude, you're going to have to start treating yourself like an athlete. If you do a show Friday, show Saturday, show Sunday, Monday, you stretch, eat really well, hydrate. Tuesday, you come see me. Needles in your whole body, cupping, the deep tissue massage, do nothing. Wednesday, down the gym light session. Thursday, gym, stretch, yoga Friday morning, then gig Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and repeat. Because otherwise you will not be able to walk, or your knees or your ankles will be gone, and you'll be...
It's so wild hearing this, because you're such a rare species. Like, someone who is so in demand and so popular that they've got all these gigs to play and they've got to look after themselves.
But
They're a musician.
don't forget, most people seen behind decks.
Or
the other, people hear about Pink and Pink's live shows. Pink's an athlete, whether you like it or not. You see Pink on stage, regardless of whether she was 25 or 45. Like, what she does in a 2-hour show. And then you see how she trains, how she eats, the recovery, the massage. Obviously, she flies around the world with these teams. I don't fly around with her, I can't afford it. But if I could, I would fly around the world with someone who would put needles in my legs every day after every show. And I think most people aren't doing it because most people aren't doing it at my age.
That's right. You talk about Craig David. He's about the same age as
Craig
you,
David's
isn't
in
he?
incredible shape. Like, there's not really many people you meet who aren't in great shape. And if they weren't in great shape, all of a sudden you find they have to get in good shape. Like, I'm pretty sure Adele wouldn't be doing the shows she's doing now in Vegas if she hadn't got into shape. Yeah. It's a fact of the matter. You can do it maybe in your 20s. As soon as you hit 30, people, male, female, whatever, your disposition, whatever you're made of, people are just like, you're not going to be able to do 100 shows this year unless you start fucking taking this seriously.
And that's one of the funny niche areas of this podcast, is kind of understanding from different people, like the life hacks that they've picked up along the way. And I've heard you reference like Wim Hof breathing.
I do that every night. I do breath work or Wim Hof, like the 30, 40 deep breaths in and out. So it's like short ones out until you feel like you're sort of your body's hyperventilating, and then you hold your breath for a minute and a half, 2 minutes. I can do 3-minute breath holds, and I can do 100 push-ups whilst holding my breath. All this sort of shit that Wim Hof does. There's loads of different versions though, but
I got into that for a phase. Wim Hof, I was doing the breathing a lot. Do you ever listen to music during the phases where you're holding your breath?
I listen to the sort of Nepalese ding, it'd be like wait is it? No, it's not there. But you know what I mean.
I would listen to Tool while I was sort of zoning out, and sometimes I would hold my breath for about 3 minutes, and I would just be in this amazing trancey state, and I'd kind of like snap out of it. It's like, whoa,
I do it before I go to
happened?
bed, and then have the best night's sleep.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah, it's almost like you're breathing all the stress in and out.
Yeah, a reset.
It's a really interesting part of your personality. Like only knowing you through other interviews to kind of see the depth of your character and the different things. Okay. Like, it's easy to take you on face value, but then you hear you talking and you're going, oh fuck, that's completely different to kind of that high energy person that you only might see on stage.
Yeah, I'm still that guy, but I'm just a lot. Do you know what? I think I was never into spirituality, and I was never really into like energies and chakras and all the terms. It doesn't matter what you call them. Every religion, every language has got these words for these things, right? And essentially, they're all about the same things. I think the main thing is I'm a lot better at reading a room now, and in terms of reading other energies in a room, whereas before I would go in with just my energy, and that was starting to affect my marriage, and it was starting to affect my kids and my kids' behavior and waking up in the morning and coming upstairs and just being me and however I felt at that particular moment. If I'd had a bad night's sleep, everyone knew about it. Not that I was in a bad mood or aggressive, but just putting your mood onto other people rather than reading and vibing off other people. And I think if you're in a room to perform, you can do that. If you're in a room to be interviewed, you can do that for most of the time, depending on what style of interview it is. But for everything else in life, you're going for dinner with someone, or you're having breakfast with your kids, or you're even going to the gym, just feeling the vibe of the energy of people around you is something that not enough people do.
Yeah.
And I think self-awareness. And I think when you're a big personality and you are quite confident, it can be negative unless you're aware of it. And I think I was starting to have a real negative effect on, I'd go visit my mum and dad, and then afterwards I'd be like, why are they in such a mood? And then, Erin would say to me, well, you did this. And I was like, oh, fuck, yeah. And the first thing is just sort of admitting it. And then, taking, whether it's advice or criticism, being able to open to that criticism. And the next thing is like, what am I going to do about this?
I meant what I said at the start. Like, you do have that. We had another guest, Mike Minogue, recently. Similar energy. Like, as soon as I met you, it's kind of like you make people happy in your space.
That's nice to hear, man.
Yeah, I wanted to take a Glastonbury detour if we can, because I've heard an incredible story.
This podcast will be about 3 hours, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, we got time. I'd heard that Glastonbury is different to other live gigs, and that the video element of it is so beneficial to you as an artist that you kind of take a bit of a pay cut because you're going to pick up audience elsewhere. And was there one year where the Rolling Stones were meant to be the live act? But
they were on stage, but they wouldn't let the BBC show their gig. Like, for whatever, like, you've probably read about the Rolling Stones and supposed, tax exiles and avoiding paying tax, because they're non-domicile, and what they do 3 months here, 3 months here, 3 months there, so then they haven't got a
fixed abode.
A fixed abode, so they don't pay any tax, they pay very little. So I'm pretty sure that, I'm not knocking the Rolling Stones, these are just facts. Pretty sure Rolling Stones are non-domicile, travel around, don't pay tax, and their managers are also their lawyers and their accountants. They're all, you would expect that for the biggest band in the world. So for whatever reason, they were the first band to ever turn around to the BBC and say, you're not airing our gig. Yeah. Which I guess is their way of going, if you want to hear the music, you pay for it. And if you want to see us live, you pay for it. And people do still pay for them. So, whether you like that or not, it seems a bit aggressive money grabbing, but, it works for them. So everyone tuned in to watch the Rolling Stones, and they got me instead.
But the sort of roll-on effect of that was that 3 of your albums
went straight into the top 10 on iTunes.
Top 10 the next day.
I had a lot of. This is when I would read Twitter every day. There'd be a lot of what the fuck's who's this fucking example? Like, I want to see the Stones. This guy's fucking awful. This guy's shite. What the fuck's this? Yeah. Can't. I'm hitting the red button on BBC trying to get the Stones. All I've got is this fucking example guy. But you learn to just take that with a pinch of salt. Yeah. Any abuses, any criticisms. It's good, it's good press.
It's wild, that reach. I want to detour again. I'm going all over the place, but I'd heard a story about. I'm talking about those years when you were mixing and mingling with the biggest socialites in the world, and I'd heard a story that was a hot tub, and it was you and Harry Styles and Freddie Flintoff and Holly Willoughby.
That was at Jimmy Carr's house. Yeah. So Jimmy Carr used to throw these house parties for celebs. Probably, I'm probably not invited anymore because I'm not A-list enough. But I went to his house party once, and the first party was about 60, 70 people there, and they were all the most famous people in England and the world. All the people you just said, like, there was Harry Styles, there was Peter Jones off Dragon's Den, Holly Willoughby, there was Ricky Gervais, Russell Brand.
Fucking hell.
It was just like, I was the shittest celeb by a long way. Yeah. Like, that's how good, this party was so A-list, I was the shittest. And we ended up in a pool. I think my wife at the time, Erin, went to get McDonald's with Harry Styles around 1 a.m. And then we were all in a hot tub.
That's a dangerous game, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, McDonald's. Yeah. So we were all in a hot tub at like 4 or 5 a.m. at Jimmy Carr's house, all wearing our underwear. I don't even remember what we were talking about, what happened. We were all pretty lit. Yeah. And then the next time I went to Jimmy Carr's house, I went to his house. I went to 3 parties in total. Always just like crazy levels of, like, I actually became really good friends with Heston Blumenthal from Jimmy Carr's party.
Yeah.
Like, I think someone was just like, you two will get on. You're both fucking nuts. Yeah. And me and Heston, we don't chat so much. I'm still in contact, but he's kind of off the grid. But Heston lived close to me in London. We used to hang out every 2 weeks. Just sit down on a Sunday talking food and science and shit and drinking wine and smoking cigars. But Jimmy Carr, the last party I went to Jimmy Carr, I did a photo booth with Stephen Hawking.
Wow.
Stephen Hawking died 6 months later.
That's a fucking amazing.
It was me, Aaron, and Stephen Hawking in a photo booth. Amazing. And he was there doing his twitchy thing that he did. Good old Stephen. And he was obviously typing something out because he had this way of quickly selecting, a way to say a speech. I don't think he wrote the letters. He wrote the sentence in much way you do, like, you're typing now, and it'll predict not only the text, but then predict the next word. And you've got an option for next words, and then he would blink to. And Erin was encouraged by Stephen Hawking's nurse to lean in and pull a sexy face. She was like, "Oh, go on, he likes that. Stephen loves all that." Seriously. And Erin's leant in and gone. And then Stephen Hawking's gone, "I like the sexy. I like this. I often wonder when I look at the world, what would it be?" He's got one of the most famous voices ever, and it's not even his.
I didn't know you had a Hawking in your accent locker.
I often wonder since I was a little boy and I looked at the universe. But yeah, I met Stephen Hawking just before he passed away.
Would you like to go to McDonald's with me?
Yeah. I like the sexy. But yeah, I don't really, people are like, was he a lovely guy? I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, Stephen Hawking, he doesn't, I'm not being mean, he doesn't move or do anything, so.
Hard to get a read.
Hard to get a read. Like, was it amazing to meet him? Yeah. Have I got that photo up in my house? Yeah. Did Erin want that photo in the divorce? Yeah. No.
Was there
just absolute bonkers though? What did you say about meeting Stephen Hawking? It's just
that's floored me as well. I'm like thinking,
it's a hell of a party. You mentioned Jimmy Carr. Was there a Jimmy Carr Princess Beatrice connection?
Yeah. Oh, the prince. So I met Princess Beatrice at Jimmy Carr's house. And Princess Beatrice comes over to me. Well, her boyfriend at the time came over to me. Dave was his name. And he used to work for Virgin Galactic. So it was called Dave, but
Dave.
He was big in the game, He was like high up at Virgin Galactic, not like a shit job. It was like astronaut shit.
I was going to say, astronaut.
People are like, I want to grow up and be an astronaut. Dave grew up to be an astronaut. So Beatrice has come over to me and she's gone, "I'm a fan." Dave says, it's like, anyway, so I've taken Dave's number, I think, and I'm chatting to, that's it. She texts me and invites me to come play tennis at Buckingham Palace. They've got one tennis court, I think, at Buckingham Palace, and obviously she gets to use it 'cause it's her nan's house, or late nan's house. And the same day I got invited to play tennis at Buckingham Palace, I was invited by Life Water, the charity, which was run by Simon, who's a good mate of mine. Simon is Adele's ex-husband, who I'm still very close to. And I knew Simon through Adele. And Life Water was bottled in Wales. And for whatever reason, that day, Queen Elizabeth, good old Liz, was in this part of Wales doing her duties as a queen. She's just traveling around the Commonwealth, meeting people who do work for charity. And this day she was meeting people who bottled water in a water bottling plant. And I was invited as an ambassador for Life Water to go and meet the Queen in Wales. The same day I was invited to play tennis by Princess Beatrice. Bearing in mind, I don't know the royal family. Yeah. I met Princess Beatrice and was invited to play tennis 4 days later at Buckingham Palace. Don't know the Queen, but had a link to the Queen via Life Water charity purely by chance because she was in Herefordshire where the water was bottled. So I've had to text Beatrice and say, would really love to come and play tennis at the Palace, but I'm off to Wales to meet your nan.
I'd heard the wording of that text was from Princess Beatrice coming on your phone. Do you want to come play tennis at my nan's house? And you're like, your nan's house?
Yeah.
Now, is this the nan who's the Queen, or is this...
Yeah, because I'm off to meet your actual nan in Wales. And it ended up being that the person who introduced me to the Queen, because I've got a photo with the Queen. I've met the Queen twice. And I've got a photo of shaking her hand. And I'm just there going, Like just doing my face, which is just general goofiness. And the Queen, the guy from Wales is like, "Oh, Your Majesty, I believe Elliot there knows your granddaughter, Beatrice." Obviously, the Queen's in the middle of Wales. She's probably like, "This guy fucking no Beatrice."
Of course he fucking does.
So she's just sort of going, "Oh, nice," and just walked off. And then Prince Philip's there, and he's going, what does he do? This is Elliot. He's works for Life Water. He's an ambassador. He's actually a rapper, and he knows your granddaughter, Beatrice. We've got rappers as well today. We've got water bottling in Wales with rappers. Oh, lovely. Splendid. Lovely to meet you. Shook my hand, walked off. And then I've texted bitches and gone, just met Nan. And then she's gone, "Oh, that's so silly. I'll call her and tell her she met my friend." I'll call her. And the Queen's just got like, I'm like, "Nan, you just met my friend in Wales." That's what happened.
What circles to be in? Like, these are the people.
Can you play tennis?
Not very well. I can't bottle water either.
That's such an amazing invite. Come meet you 4 days ago. Come have a game of tennis.
Yeah.
Fucking all right.
Yeah. Well, she knows how to lure you in.
Yeah.
That's literally the only thing that's going to stop you going to Buckingham Palace. It's because the fucking Queen's not there. She's elsewhere. Yeah. I'd love to. She's probably like, why doesn't he want to come back in Paris? Like, who turns up Buckingham? Oh, he's going to meet my nan somewhere else. Yeah. Sorry.
Also, the only time that you can play is when she's out of.
Fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
That's probably probably my best story.
We've had some really good luck with royal stories on this podcast, actually. One was told about a haka in Buckingham Palace, and it's gone ballistic on TikTok, talking about weird algorithms. So we'll post that one and see how it does.
Yeah.
That's a good area.
I'm not so confident.
It's a good area to go, though. Streaming and music and how it's changed. Like we talked about what it was like when you started. Now you release a song like we talked about. You're monitoring the streams. But is it as much YouTube and TikTok as genuine like Spotify plays? Like has the whole game changed so much?
It has. I just think the main difference now is I think it's easier for people to fast track success and fame. I think before, generally speaking, you'd have to put hours in, either behind the scenes or on the scene. You know, generally speaking, if it was from a rapping point of view, you'd have to put work in on the circuit, performing, freestyling, battling, doing pop-up performances in record shops, releasing mixtapes, collaborating. I put out 7 vinyls and 3 CD mixtapes before I even got play on Radio 1. Now it's just like, it can all be because of one song. I'm not knocking that. That's just the difference. That's just the way it is. In the same way that today, algorithms on Spotify and TikTok would probably love Britney Spears because it's fucking catchy. It's got a little bit of an edge. It's cheeky. It's sexy. She's good looking. She's cheeky. She's sexy. Her name rolls off the tongue. Like, her image, like, she's got a lot of hits. She's got all the best songwriters in the world and producers writing songs for her. Like, we're going to get to a stage soon where there's going to be AI pop stars. It already is. And the songs are being written by AI. The videos are done by AI. The artists are created by AI. It's just, you know, like, songs are performed particularly well at Spotify. You know, mainly if you're a massive label with a lot of spend, because don't forget Spotify is obviously Scandinavian, but a lot of the major labels have shares in it as well, and then a lot of the major labels have their own playlists. So a lot of the big playlists you listen to, you might not know, but that playlist is run by Island Records or Warner Records or Universal Records.
Really?
And 90% of the records on that playlist might be by Universal, but a song's getting so big over at Warner, and then someone at Warner's like, can you stick our artist on your massive pop playlist? And Universal like, okay, but we need one of our acts on your big Warner playlist. So there's a bit of that, but then there are songs that just are so fucking good for whatever reason, human ear likes them, and we put them in our running playlists and our our gym playlists and our party playlists and our house party playlists and our revising playlists. So humans still have the average Joe, the average listener, still has an influence, people power. You know, like some of my songs, it will say 48% of streams are from your listeners, and then 20% are from our playlist, and then 22% are from listeners' own playlists.
I bet those numbers are accurate too.
Yeah. But then every now and again, I'll get a song where it's like only 22% of your streams are from your listeners. 56% of streams are coming from our editorial playlists. So you've obviously clicked somewhere, and somewhere at Spotify UK has gone, oh, this is doing really well for us. Spotify Germany have gone, oh, we're going to try this week. Spotify France, oh, we're going to try this week. Wow. Before you know it, you're on playlists all over the world, and you're getting an extra 10, 20,000 a week from those countries. So it's impossible. Basically, the answer is it's fucking impossible, like anything has always been, to know. Like, if you've got a cat falling down a slide into a swimming pool on YouTube, it's probably going to do well. If you've got a really cheesy, catchy pop song that's 1 minute 47 with a really hot girl selling it, it's probably going to do well on TikTok. So the same rules have always applied. They're just in a different playing field now. It's like, you know, Britney Spears was the TikTok star of her day in a way, I think, you know, and then, you know, pretty much every pop star you can name after that, they're all versions of that. You know,
was there one part, I'm not sure what part of the journey it was on, that Spotify did like a push to every person that had ever listened to one of your songs? That was it, that a new album was released or a single or something?
Yeah.
Like, is that just priceless? Is that?
Yeah, like, so I'm signed with BMG now in Sydney. So it's a worldwide deal. And the reason I went with BMG is they offered me similar percentages to if I'd have been independent. So, you know, 15 years ago, my record deal was I got 20% or 20 pence for every pound, and the record label got 80. Most deals now, most artists are getting 70, 80, 90 pence or cents to the dollar. The record label get the rest. So I took a deal with BMG because they gave me quite favorable percentages compared to if I'd have done it by myself. I thought I might as well use their infrastructure. They seem like really cool guys. They love the music. They've got the radio pluggers, the marketing people, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, we just had an email or a call maybe a year ago, and they were like, Spotify loved this new one so much. The day this single comes out, anybody who's ever listened or clicked on an example song on Spotify will see this new song banner as an advert with an option to click.
That's awesome.
Which was probably the biggest sort of bit of promo help I'd had from Spotify that we hadn't paid for. Or that they hadn't paid for. I don't really pay for that shit, but you know. And then I don't think it was hugely successful. I think, you know, there was something like maybe 100,000 clicks out of a potential 47 million.
Yeah,
but it's probably similar to the amount of people who see an advert at a bus stop and go, "I'm getting a Coke Zero."
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah,
that's wild. That's wild.
But yeah, I can just see that you'd rather do a separate show just about stats.
I'm a stats guy. I love asking people who, I mean, we've got kids similar ages. What have you learned about yourself as a dad? What has the parenting journey taught you?
I think one of the main things I've learned is you can't bullshit kids, really. Like you can lie to kids, but you can't really bullshit kids. Like they've just got a sixth sense for bullshit, you know? Like as in, you know, the same way that pets can read good and bad energy. You know, like some weird fucker who lives down the end of your street, and like he walks down the street and goes towards the cat and the dog, and the cat's like, fuck off.
Yeah.
And you're like, and one day that guy gets arrested for something, and your mum's like, I always said there was something funny about him. You know, remember our dog, Lassie? Lassie never used to go near him. But like kids can read energy. I think they can, you know, they can tell, even though they won't be able to work out if you're lying to them at a young age. Not that I lie to my kids. What I'm saying is they force you to be the best version of yourself. You know, I love being sharp for my kids. I don't like being hungover. I like having a good night's sleep. I like being fresh. I like to get up, and I like to give them eye contact if they need that. I like to give them tactileness, you know, if they want to just not necessarily want to cuddle, but just be near you. And I think the main thing I've learned from them is just being aware of your energy and your vibe that you put out, and how I can change their whole day and their whole mood. If you're carrying, you know, like, you know, you see it so much, like you don't see it, but you realize growing up, the shit that your parents probably had to deal with in terms of their siblings, work, stress, depression. Not with my parents, but I'm sure for other people, like addiction or, you know, huge finance problems, and not letting that ruin your kid's day or having an influence on your kid's day is, I think, the most important part of being a parent.
Yeah.
Like, we can all be fun and make them laugh. We can all tickle them. We can all chase them. We can all paint a picture of them. We can sit and put a film on, and we can play FIFA with them on the PlayStation. That isn't necessarily good parenting. I think it's just the nurturing, like shielding them from the bad shit and teaching them about behavior, good and bad behavior, but also just like shielding them from the other stuff. And I don't just mean like faking it, like putting on a brave face, but essentially like their lives are so much more important than our existence, really. We've made this decision to have kids. So I'm just like, every morning it's just about them. I've learned to not make it about me anymore. And I think for a while I was constantly making it about me. I would let my mood carry over into their breakfast time or their walk to school. You know, I'd be on the phone already on my walk to school, stressing about something. I'm like, no, I'm going to drop them off, let them go to school at a certain level, you know, of happiness and calm, relaxation, ready to learn, energized, excited for school, knowing I'm going to be there to pick them up, or their mum's going to pick them up, and then I can get on with my shit as an adult. You know what I mean?
I do. It's a perspective changer. It changes your outlook on everything and reframes what's important.
I was getting calls from the school, not a lot, once or twice, where my eldest had misbehaved, and it was the day when I let my stress or my, you know, my vibe overspill into his sense of being, I guess. You know, I'd put him on edge, and it caused him to do something, you know, pretty rash and like some outlandish, out of nowhere incident at school, and I felt like I needed to take the blame for that a bit, you know. It's
good awareness to know that it's reflected. Hey, look, and thank you so much for giving us your time today. It's been a wild ride. It's been so fun. We've loved every minute of it. I'm just going to leave time for Shay. Shay's our outro guy, and he always delivers with a big outro, and I know he's got a good one lined up. But before that, I just want to say thank you so much. Like,
pleasure, man.
I've loved every minute of it, and
I've loved this too.
Yeah,
it's my first NZ pod as well.
First NZ pod.
Glad that we broke your cherry.
Yeah.
So to speak. Popped your cherry?
Fucking hell.
We didn't break it.
Yeah. I wouldn't want you doing that to me, mate.
No.
I wouldn't walk again.
You need that physio to come over and do the needles and the week off. Right, here we go. I'll try and wrap it up. This is hard. Like I find the episodes where I'm very quiet, like I've been tonight, are the ones where I'm just engrossed in who we're lucky enough to speak to.
Okay.
And like this has been amazing in terms of just being in your presence. Like Stephen said, you've got an energy and it comes straight into the room. It's an authenticity as well, which is amazing. And the fact that your music has been a soundtrack to my life as well. Like you captured it really well when you're talking about those moments in life. And I think not just your music, but all music, you attach memories and experiences to them.
Yeah.
And they take you to great places, they take you to sad places, but they have meaning and they're so special to you. And to actually meet the person that's provided some amazing memories is so fucking cool. But also following your journey and to see the depth of character as well, and the good and the bad, acknowledging relationship breakdowns and the lessons that people can learn. For someone that has a platform like you do, I think it's incredible that people can pick away and take stuff that works for them. And I think you're an incredible example of like a young modern day father and the influence that they have on their kids. So I'm glad Stevie's been able to pick your brain on some parenting stuff, because he uses the podcast as a cheat sheet a lot of the time on how to guide his
I just think that the main thing I feel in life now is just like it's so easy to just pass on life lessons and tips, and like people often did it to me and I wasn't ready to listen. But I'm not only ready to listen now, I'm ready to share and just ready to constantly make changes, you know?
Yeah, and I've seen that change. Like I've charted that change, and it's amazing. So thank you very much for sharing. Long may it continue.
And we'll do this again in a few years.
Yeah,
hell yeah.
Look forward to your next New Zealand gig.
Yeah, mate.
Thanks
so much. Not in Auckland, Jesus.
Hamilton's a place.
Hamilton, yeah, that's like an hour away, right?
That's the hometown.
I did play Hamilton like about 3 years ago.
All right, we'll see you.
What's the venue there?
We'll see you back there.
Founders Theatre?
No, Stephen, fuck me. Jesus, Founders Theatre. Man's in the 1990s.
What's that sort of like big shed?
Yeah, it was the Outback.
That's it.
And it became the Factory.
That's it.
Fucking Founders Theatre. Jesus.
You go watch the ballet there.
You call yourself a ambassador.
That was the last time I went to a show.
You're going to revoke your
Founders Theatre.
You're going to revoke your ambassador status. Thank you very much, Elliot.
Yeah, thanks, Elliot.